This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. As the cool and colorful embrace of fall envelops the Northern Hemisphere, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals throughout this season. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. And in today's Season 4 premiere episode, we're talking to an amazing individual who you may know for his hidden gem features on his Instagram, and most recently on his new website, offthebeatentravel.com. His name is Sasha, and you can follow him on Instagram at Sasha_traveler. Sasha shares with us some of his favorite hidden gems that he and his family have come across as they travel around the U.S., which includes some picturesque places in Montana, the beautiful Southwest, and much, much more. Looking for places outside of the U.S.? Sasha has you covered there as well, creating off-the-beaten-path locations across the globe. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Sasha. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have an unbelievable person with us today. His name is Sasha. He has been traveling across our beautiful country for the last couple months and years. I'm really excited to talk to him, not just about his hiking adventures, but also his travel experiences. Sasha, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You know, one of the first things we always like to ask our guests is how long they've been hiking for and how they got started.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Ivan. This is a very exciting day for me. My family and I, we now have a 5-year-old. We've been traveling across America for the past 2 years, which has been an unbelievable adventure. First in an RV and then in a car. And actually just today, I'm actually launching a website about hidden gems that we've discovered both on our travels in the U.S. and in 50 countries overall. It's called Off the Beaten Travel. So we'll talk more about that later. But thanks for the question. And you have a really cool podcast. I enjoy listening to your fellow outdoor adventurers and getting inspired. I got started hiking. I was a scout growing up in the Washington, D.C. area. My parents dropped me off at a scout camp when I was 7 years old, and I kind of panicked and was really upset. I got sick, but we had some pretty inspirational scout leaders that took us on hikes. And I remember my first backpacking trip. I was 10 years old, and it was not in like nice, warm, sunny conditions. It was actually in the colder fall, and so I had this backpack that was bigger than I was. And went overnight and basically almost froze to death. I think they got down to about 25 degrees that night.
Oh my goodness.
10 and the whole hike was probably 10 miles over 2 days. But, you know, when you're that age, it's very, very memorable. And people kept telling me like, oh, it's going to build character. It's going to build character. And I hated them. You know, after getting back from there, I feel like I had conquered the world, and I looked at everything in a very different light and all of my friends and classmates. And it was just like, wow, you know, I did something really cool, guys. And that was kind of the start of it. And then I became a scout leader as a teenager. And my parents were really not into the outdoors, but it was mostly through the scouts that I was able to sort of get started that way.
And you mentioned it. You've been on an incredible journey the last couple of years, cross country travel and visiting different countries. How did the passion for traveling kind of come about for you?
Well, I traveled a bunch with my parents when I was a kid, but they took me mostly to like churches and museums and stuff that is really riveting for like a 10-year-old. And so I wanted to travel a lot more after that. My field of work is conflict resolution in Africa. And so I moved to Uganda just after graduate school. And I was supposed to be there just for a few months. And I ended up being there for almost 3 years. I really fell in love with the place. And I ended up founding an organization that helps former child soldiers out there called the Grassroots Reconciliation Group. We're still around 16 years later.
Awesome.
And that really opened up my eyes to a whole different area of the world of travel. I ended up hiking a pretty big volcano mountain that used to be higher than Kilimanjaro until it spewed in Uganda.
Oh, wow.
I trekked the gorillas with my mom who visited Zanzibar. And that really kind of turned me on to off the beaten travel and exploring these places that I'd never heard of and, are hardly in your sort of standard definitions. And then I met my wife who's from Ethiopia. And so we hiked around Ethiopia. We hiked up to a volcano and saw it like 20 feet from us, this incredible lava lake and some amazing places. So, and once you discover one place, you're like, oh, I got to find the next off the beaten track place. I gotta, I gotta go to those hikes that are not on AllTrails. I gotta, ask the locals like what the coolest thing to do is that most people don't do. And so, it almost becomes a competition with yourself.
The content that you're posting, Sasha, is really great because you have showcased a lot of hidden gems in and around like popular national parks or cities that, I think people naturally gravitate to those national parks, but you found some, within a very short drive that doesn't have the crowds, but still has the views. You mentioned you've been traveling with your wife and son. How was it getting your family involved with hiking and traveling?
Well, it's funny you asked. Before we met, my wife had never been camping in her life. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see how this is going to go. And so I thought, let's start out with car camping, but let's go car camping in a cool place. So I was like, honey, can we go to Yellowstone? She's like, what's that? So like, well, it's this really cool national park. There's craters and geysers and, bears and bison and that sort of thing. And she's like, okay. And, after that, we went on a backpacking trip, the same trip. We went to a relatively unknown corner of Yellowstone called Denanda Falls, which is super cool. It's hot springs under a waterfall. And I would say neither of us got any sleep that night. We were so freaked out about the possibility of grizzly bears. As it turns out, grizzly bears don't really hang out in that area of the park. So we were actually, we were fine. And then, the year after that, we did an incredible backpacking. It was a 3-night backpacking trip in Glacier National Park, where you have to like actually cross into Canada and show your passport and then cross back all within the hike. And that was absolutely spectacular. It's a place called Boulder Pass, which is a very underexplored area of the park. Everybody goes to, Lake McDonald and Iceberg Lake and the Grinnell Glacier, but this is kind of in the northwest corner of the park. And then, we had our kid, he's almost 6 now, and we got him into camping and backpacking from a very early age. So our first trip with him, where he slept in a tent, was actually going back to Yellowstone. And we camped for 10 days in Yellowstone and then in the Grand Tetons. That was, amazing. And he's become super adaptable. He loves sleeping between mom and dad. We did some great backpacking last year in Washington State, in Montana, and in the Southwest, like in Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. So yeah, once you get them involved early, they become very adaptable and get excited. I mean, he doesn't need expensive toys. His best toys are sticks and rocks and trees and climbing, and that's the thing that really makes kids happy. So
Sasha, this is a hard question to answer, but do you have any memorable hikes that you've done as a family in the last year that you can share with us?
I would say probably the most memorable one that we did was actually in Washington State, where you are, on Mount Baker. So, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
drive up to Artist Point there, we did it in September. It was a really amazing time of year to go. It was like, there was not too much snow. There was a little snow here. There was a little snow there, I should say. And my kid got to sled a little, so that was fun. Or glissade, I guess, because he was like riding on his butt. And I did it too. But we backpacked the Ptarmigan Ridge, and there's this little lake there called Goat. Somebody called it Goat Lake. I don't know if it's the official name. You don't need a permit to camp there. There's tons of people on those trails, starting from Artist Point, but almost nobody backpacks. And I think we were actually there on a holiday weekend, so it might have been Labor Day weekend. And obviously the trail was crowded, but the camping was not at all. And you have views of both Mount Baker and Mount Chuckson right there, and pump your water from a glacial lake. It was absolutely incredible. And, basically it's most views for your buck, so to speak, anywhere. And again, no reservations. I hate reservations because so many people just reserve these spots and then they actually don't use them. We would encounter tons of empty parks that were reserved on paper, but because people only paid $10 or $15 to reserve it, they didn't care if they actually went or not. And so this is a great place with no reservations, which we loved. So yeah, that was an amazing hike. The north side of Mount Adams also comes to mind, also in Washington State. Again, an area you don't need permits to camp or in advance. I think you had to sort of sign up at the trailhead, but that was another 2-nighter that we did. And everyone does sort of the south side of Adams where you can summit it, but the north side is very underexplored. And that was cool. It intersects with the PCT for a little bit, and that was really awesome. We got to see a glacier up close, kiss the glacier. That was the that was the point. Yeah. And I learned the whole bit about don't cross the glacier streams in the late afternoon because they become so big and raging. You have to cross them in the morning. So that's something new for me, being from the East Coast. So
Oh, that's incredible. And before we started recording, you were telling me some of the other places you got a chance to visit in Washington. And they're truly off the beaten path because I think most people, when they come to Washington, the big three are Seattle, Mount Rainier, and the Olympics. But you've been able to find some really unique cities and towns on your travel across the country. What are some of your favorite underrated cities or even states people might not see as a outdoor recreational destination?
Well, we really loved New Mexico. That, I think, is a very underrated state overall. A lot of people know Santa Fe and Albuquerque, especially if you watch Breaking Bad, right? And it's funny, driving with an RV in New Mexico, everyone thinks that you're cooking meth in it, right? It's pretty hilarious. So we were not doing that, obviously. But, New Mexico has some amazing public lands out there. So, for example, the Bistay Badlands is a BLM area, and you can camp there, for up to 2 weeks for free. It looks very similar to the Badlands in South Dakota or, some of the most spectacular formations in Utah. And almost nobody goes there. That was phenomenal. Also, Chaco Canyon, which is a national monument, but it is, I think soon will be a national park. It is, that really blew our minds because it was like visiting Aztec ruins in Mexico, and you can walk all through them. They're these intact buildings. There's a great kiva, which is huge. It's 200 feet in diameter. You can walk through all these places and discover them. And it's not in Mexico. It's in the United States. It's a really rough road getting there, which actually makes it sort of more off the beaten path and more fun, if you ask me. So, and very underrated and not crowded. What else? There's an area south of Glacier National Park in Montana, between basically Glacier and Missoula. So if you're going to Glacier, you're either flying to Glacier or flying to Missoula. And so there's a whole great area of glacial lakes and mountains that are in the same range as Glacier, but it's not part of the national park. And so, as soon as you utter those two words, national park, everyone's going there. But if you're in an area that is not, then you can have so many of the trails by yourself. And so we hiked this area called the Mission Range because I guess there were missionaries there, Catholic missionaries. It's close to St. Ignatius, and there's a bunch of hikes kayaks around there. So it's McDonald Lake, not Lake McDonald, like the one in the park. There's a few other streams and beautiful areas. And we saw bear scat everywhere. No bears, thankfully, but just absolutely stunning environments. You can fish on these lakes with a permit. They're on the Native American reservation, the Salish Kootenai reservation. So you got to get a permit from them, but not a big deal, not difficult to get, and just really spectacular areas. And you can do them as day hikes. I probably recommend that so you don't run into the bears at night.
And I want to say, is that the lake that you posted on a reel not too long ago where you did some kayaking or canoeing?
So that's a neighboring lake called Swan Lake, and it's right near there. And another hidden gem, that's an area with no cell phone signal, which I love. I hate all these initiatives that are trying to bring cell phone to everywhere. You know, it's like, come on, man, let's leave some places good to go offline. And so that was a really amazing. We camped there for 3 or 4 days. It was a funny situation because the campground manager, whatever you call them, the camp host, went through the campground at about 5:30 saying, "Hey, there was a grizzly bear sighting. It was a grizzly bear sighting. Everyone back." We saw absolutely no evidence of this thing. And we think that the host was really just trying to quiet everyone down because they were hearing too many noises from the campers, like, you know, people drinking beers and stuff. That was pretty hilarious. But that's another really stunning area. You can just rent a kayak or canoe and go out on this lake, and you know, you're basically, you know, some of the only people there. Swan Lake, Holland Lake is right near there too. So
yeah, that lake in the video was truly spectacular because it looks like any lake you would see in the park, but without, I think you were the only one on the lake at that time when you kind of panned across it, which, you know, it's hard to find those type of unique gems nowadays in the outdoors.
There's tons of them in Montana. Yeah. Just don't park yourself in a national park and you'll find a lot of solitude. Yeah.
Going back to the national parks, You've been able to cross off quite a bit of them, Sasha. I think you're over halfway through visiting the U.S. national parks.
Yeah, 34. Yep.
What's been the most underrated park, if there has been an underrated park that you visited?
Yeah, good question. So probably North Cascades. It's actually the second least visited park in the lower 48 states, which is mind-blowing to me. The hikes there that we went on and the camping, the free camping that we had was pretty unbeatable. Obviously it rains a lot there and snows in the wintertime. We really love North Cascades, and it looks like Patagonia for us. That was really phenomenal. There's also a park in southern Arizona. Technically, it's not a national park. It's a national monument. It's called Organ Pipe Cactus. And it's right on the border with Mexico, about an hour south of Tucson. And that was absolutely phenomenal too. There's a really great campground there called Twin Peaks, nothing related to the show. And you can hike these areas that have arches, just like an Arches National Park. But, you know, I mean, that place probably gets 1/100th of the visitors of Arches National Park. That was a really great one. And then there are so many state parks that are like, just, again, if you don't have those two words together, national park, like the crowds go down by quite a bit. And so there's another amazing park in Montana called Wade Lake. It's about an hour west of Yellowstone, and obviously Yellowstone gets huge numbers of people. Nobody goes to Wade Lake. It's a kind of a hairy road to get there. It's probably like, 5 miles or so down a dirt road, but we did it in our RV. And man, I mean, I went jogging one morning. I saw a moose. The color of the water looks like the Caribbean. We got some Pinot from Oregon and really enjoyed it on the, like, overlooking the lake. And you go again, kayaking and canoeing there. Yeah, there are many of these, and many more that I'm going to put on the website that's launching today. So
that's a question I've been wanting to ask you is, how do you, obviously, you do your research, but how do you come across some of these hidden gems? Because you've really been great at sharing off the beaten path locations and experiences without the crowds. How do you kind of come about them?
Mostly it's asking locals. They're full of people who live in these places, are full of knowledge, but usually nobody's asking them. And if you Google someplace, you're probably going to get, the same top 10 list from TripAdvisor and Lonely Planet and, all the mainstream publications. even though Lonely Planet, interestingly, started as sort of the hidden gems kind of thing, and now it's become the mainstream. So ask locals. Like I love asking. If for any outdoor adventures, asking the people in the local outdoor shops, whether it's an REI or a local, mountain outfitter, it doesn't matter. But the staff who work at those places, they know the good hikes to go on, and especially if you ask them, like, I want to hike, like that's not super crowded, and I also have a kid, like, here's what we can generally do. And I'll just sit at these stores for a couple of hours and then go over the maps with these people, and that's how we did design the north side of Adams hike. Oftentimes, like, we love to go get cappuccino, and so we'll ask the local baristas at the coffee shop, not at Starbucks, but at the local ones. They're good sources of information. National Geographic does some pretty good guides on different places. They often will have good hidden gems, and there's so many blogs out there nowadays. If you search for hidden gems of X place, you're going to come across hopefully credible bloggers. But there's a number of people out there. Hopefully, my website will rank in those at some juncture, and people write about them. So then you can gather the latest. But asking locals is always cool. And my wife is from Ethiopia. Like, I lived in Uganda. You lived in Germany. I lived in England. So asking locals from those places too about what their favorite spots are, and oftentimes they're not the standard tourist spots. Usually, in my experience, like 90% of people go to the same 5 places, and oftentimes it's literally just like a side street. Like, you get off the Fifth Avenue in New York, and all of a sudden, like, wow, there's quite a lot of places there that nobody goes to. So
right on, Sasha. And you've been great at posting these hidden gems on your Instagram. On the website, can you share a little bit more about what's going to be on the website?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the question, Ivan. So basically, my family and I love exploring hidden gems like trails and parks and hidden beaches and underrated countries and cities. And so, everything we've come across is on this website. We have a blog about hidden gems in California. I think we have 10 hidden gems in Europe. We've got 7 hidden gems in Africa. There's several in Latin America. There's different outdoor adventures. And the really thing that I'm most excited about for the site is that the tagline is your hub for hidden gems. And we really, really mean that. So that means that, like, you can contribute these hidden gems. And so we're going to have guest blogs from a range of people. The next guest blogs are going to be hidden gems from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Somebody else is writing one about Uzbekistan. We got somebody doing one about Southeast Asia. Another person doing one on Korea. Someone else just committed yesterday to Southern Italy. I'm going to do one on Portugal and where we are now in the Washington, D.C. area. So, it's not just trails, but, cities as well. So, and there's hidden gems, I think, everywhere you go, even if you're in Paris. In fact, there is a Paris Hidden Gems blog on the site, just to mess with you. A lot of those came from local Parisians. I happen to have been to Paris many times because I used to go to a conference there every year. So I would always tack on a few days. So I happen to know Paris somewhat well. But yeah, so anyway, that community aspect is going to be really cool. Perhaps you'd be interested in doing one on hidden gem hikes in the Pacific Northwest. I think that might be interesting. So I'm really looking forward to that community aspect. And it's not just about my wife and me and my son. It's about sort of a whole community. We really want to make this a hub for hidden gems everywhere.
And, 2 experiences that I wanted to ask you about that you've been great at sharing on Instagram. You visited Hawaii a few times, and earlier this year you were on the Big Island when Kilauea reawakened and started erupting. How was it seeing, the lava erupting from the crater?
Yeah, well, it was amazing. I mean, that's it's primeval, I guess, that experience. And I'm a bit of a volcano addict, I must say. I have seen volcanoes active and erupting in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mount Virunga. I have been to Ethiopia, where there's like a lava lake where I said you can stand 25 feet from the lava.
Oh,
bubbling
wow.
over itself. It was mind blowing, that one. Kilauea, we hiked this mountain in Italy, which is a small island off of Sicily called Stromboli, like the sandwich. I think they call it Stromboli to distinguish themselves from the sandwich. But anyways, and that one erupts every 45 minutes. It shoots in the air, and it's just absolutely mesmerizing. When you see these places, you can do nothing but just fixate your eyes and stare at, the earth coming out of the ground and forming the soil that we walk on. It's just you just get this connection with the earth that is just something incredible. And Kilauea only, erupts every so often. It's become dormant since then, but and then it reactivated and it became dormant again. Stromboli, I think, is still active, still every 45 minutes. The one in Ethiopia you can still go to. Or the one in Guatemala, I see a lot of people posting about that. It looks incredible. Indonesia has some amazing volcanoes. So I really recommend that experience. What you got to do, my recommendation, is to go at dusk. And so you get there, you can see where you're going, and then just wait until the sun sets, and that's when the magic happens. You get this orange glow in the dark, and that's just like, wow. So we actually camped at the Ethiopia one, not right at the rim, but 100 yards down from it. That was a really cool one. And in Congo also camped at the rim. Nobody told me that it was going to be freezing because it was Congo. So I was like, I was wearing my t-shirt and shorts. I'm like, we're on the equator. That's great. Well, guess what? It was 4,000 meters up. And it was bad, man. I was hugging my water bottle, and it was one of the coldest nights of my life. So anyway.
And then the other, national occurrence that you got to see was the firefall in Yosemite. And that one actually came from a last minute booking. I think you booked it like 2 days in advance. That's become a popular thing. And I feel like this year, people recommended that you get on the bus instead of trying to get in with your car because the lines were long. Do you have any advice or tips for folks that are wanting to catch it in 2024?
Yeah, the firefall is cool. It was very much on a whim for us. As you said, we booked 2 days in advance. We actually booked it without knowing that the firefall was happening. We just we want to go back to Yosemite. Let's check it out. We had done the Clouds Rest hike a couple of years before, and that was amazing. But we didn't see that much of the park. We just did that big hike, which is a big one. It's a 2-nighter. And so, yeah, if you want to go see the firefall, go on a weekday, first of all. Secondly, I totally recommend camping because, then it's the hotel access is very limited. The Wani Hotel, I think, just reopened again, was under renovation. But there's Airbnbs you can stay at. But really, if you want to be in the valley, get a reservation in one of those campgrounds. And they open up all the time on recreation.gov. People think I looked on recreation.gov. There were no spots. And I'm like, well, look an hour later. Look 2 hours later. Just keep checking. And they open up all the time. In fact, when we were there, we were only planning to be there for 3 nights or something. We ended up being there for 8. We just kept extending. And that was even a miracle because, there's no reception in the valley. So you're you have to stand on top of the hill to get, a recreation.gov signal. But, yeah, so just go on a weekday. And, the weekends are kind of a zoo. If you really want to see the firefall, and the firefall, it's crowded. I probably didn't do my Instagram versus reality shot, but maybe I should have. There's tons of people seeing it, but it's pretty cool. It lasts 20 minutes or something, and you have to walk from the parking area, which is I don't know, a mile maybe or half a mile. But it's pretty neat. But the cool thing to do in Yosemite at that time is ski. You can either backcountry ski off a trail, or there's literally a ski resort inside the park. It's one of our hidden gems that we put on the blog. Wow. It's called Badger Pass. You can get a lower lift ticket if you don't need the higher one for $30 a day. It's insane. Wow. And we were probably one of 50 people on the mountain that day. And we did it for 3 different days. I learned how to snowboard. Actually, we all learned how to snowboard, all 3 of us. Nice. It was really fun. There's nobody there, and it's cheap. Yes, that's a great hidden gem that nobody knows about.
I'll have to add that to my own bucket list, Sasha. One question I like to ask hikers and even backpackers, but I feel like it's more of a day hiker thing. But, some people have a summit routine or maybe an end of the hike routine. Maybe it's a favorite snack or meal or some sort of trail beverage or drink, or even just a moment of zen. Is there a regular custom that you and your family do when you reach your destination or maybe when you make it back out?
Well, our vice, I would say, is we eat lifesavers on the trail.
I like it.
We always pack lifesavers. And my kid, he knows. He's like, can I have a lifesaver? He already starting to hike. He's like, can I have a lifesaver? So that's one. Number two is I always make sure to pack a set of clean clothes for when we arrive back in the car. There's nothing worse than you did this amazing hike or backpacking trip, and then you gotta drive however many hours back to your home in sort of dirty, sweaty, smelly clothes, right? And so even though shower, at least you have these clean clothes, you feel so much better. Another thing we do when we backpack is we do pour over coffee. It's like you have gourmet coffee on the trail. It's incredible. And it's super light. The Kalita Wave coffee filter is I don't know, 4 ounces or something. It's a little metal thing. The filter itself is obviously, whatever, 1/10 of an ounce. And you can grind the coffee ahead of time and you just use your little, pocket rocket stove and heat it up. And you have gourmet coffee, in the middle of, the mountain. That was a game changer for us. We used to do the instant Starbucks things, these
stuff,
little,
yeah.
it is awful. I guess we're total coffee snobs, but that makes a huge difference. You get this amazing coffee in the morning. So yeah, I guess those are our 3 things. Oh, the other thing is make sure to have a pillow. The number of people I've come across who do backpacking and they're just I'm going to sleep on my sweater. What do you think that's going to do to your sleep at night? They have these little blow up pillows. I've never poked a hole in any of them, and they're tiny. You just blow them up; they weigh nothing, and you can sleep. I mean, anyway. So there you go. 4 things.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, and pillows are crucial. I started off with blanking on the name, but it was an inflatable pillow with a cover over it that kind of made it seem like a real pillow. Nice. But I just recently invested in a thermarest, which I think the inside is made out of recycled mattress foam. Okay. So it's the closest thing I've been able to find to a regular feeling pillow. And it's still compact where you can squeeze it into a ball. But yeah, I think pillows, especially for me just starting off in backpacking, that's one thing that's either going to make or break my sleep cycle.
Yeah, I'm not a huge, advocate for expensive gear or anything like that. You can have a great time with the most basic stuff. And I learned this very quickly in Uganda where we were required to use porters on this mountain trekking expedition on Mount Elgon in Uganda. And the dudes who carried all of our stuff were wearing flip-flops. And I was like, I don't need expensive gear. This is ridiculous. And so I'm not just go with what you got. But a pillow is just one of those things. It weighs nothing. It costs almost nothing, but you're going to sleep at night. So.
Sasha, you're getting ready to go abroad here, I think, in the next couple of days. I wanted to ask, is there any end of the year goals as far as travel or hiking experiences that you want to cross off your list?
Well, yeah, I'm taking my mom to Portugal next week. It was her dream to go there, and I have a little bit of time. And so she's 85. I'm super happy to give her that experience. It was her dream to go there. So that's one. We are going to Puerto Rico. My son requested to go back to Hawaii for his birthday, but we're in Washington, D.C. area. And so that's kind of going to the other side of the earth. So so we're going to go to Puerto Rico instead. But I'm really looking forward to that. There's a rainforest there, which apparently has some amazing zip lining. The place where we're staying is on the beach, but it's got surfing and so a big wave beach and then a more of a kids beach. So that's one thing I learned how to do when we were on our cross country trips was learn how to surf. So I'm
Nice.
really looking forward to do that again. And I developed a neck injury the last couple months, but it's actually healed, thankfully. So I'm ready to go back out there. And then we go to Ethiopia around the holidays. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. We'll see how far we can get out. Right now, there's some unrest in Ethiopia, so I'm hoping that will calm down. But Addis Ababa is an amazing city. It's a very underrated city. It's highlighted on the website. There's tons of really cool things to do there. Great coffee, amazing food, really cool museums, parks inside the city. And I love learning all about Ethiopian culture. We were there for 3 weeks last year and learned so much. So those are kind of our next travels. And next summer, we plan to go to Albania. It's a big
Nice.
underrated destination with some amazing national parks and beaches and culture. And it's one of those sort of like last frontiers of Europe. So I can't wait to get to Albania. So we have it featured on the blog. Some of our best friends are Albanian. And so we're going to go visit them. I can't wait.
Oh, I'm excited to see the pictures and videos from these upcoming trips. They're going to be amazing. Well, that was it for the regular questions, Sasha. This last bit of the podcast is one of my favorite sections. It's the this or that questions. I'm going to give you 2 hiking related topics, and you just choose the one that you prefer out of the 2. So the first one is ascending or descending?
I like ascending. My wife likes descending.
And then when it comes to trail features, do you like waterfalls or summits?
I like summits and my wife likes waterfalls. We hike together, man, so I can't just answer these by myself, right?
And then for the actual trail, especially going up to a summit, prefer switchbacks or just going straight up?
Oh, switchbacks. Definitely switchbacks. I think everyone would prefer, and our family prefers the switchbacks. And my son loves to say, switchback, switch hands, because we like hold his hand on that. So he always does that. Switchback, switch hands. So
I like it. And then do you use trek poles or are you more freehand?
I would say where there's a steep descent, we have some poles that we will dust off, but mostly we're freehand. But yeah, once in a while, my knees are still generally okay. So we'll get there to be using the poles all the time at some point. I'm 43, so.
And then this one's a fairly new one, Sasha, and I've been seeing it, evolve over the last couple of years. But when it comes to your footwear, do you prefer trail runners or hiking boots?
I prefer trail runners, but I have these hiking boots that feel like trail runners, and they are absolutely amazing. They look like basketball shoes. They hug your feet, but they're actually hiking boots. So the hybrid is what I'm going to say.
And then when it comes to your trail systems, do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
I like the loop trail, so you can get, new scenery all the way. It all depends on the route, but yeah, I like the loops better.
And when you come across a body of water on one of the hikes, do you jump in or do you stay dry?
I stay dry a lot of the time, but sometimes we hike with friends. And so on the north side of Adams, I jumped in and that was awesome. So, yeah, man, that's it.
And you've been able to witness some beautiful sunsets and sunrises on both sides of the continuous United States. But do you prefer sunsets or sunrises?
Definitely sunrises.
Okay.
Because it's the quietest time of the day. I would say probably like 1/100th people are up at that time. You really have some, zen in you from the sleep that you just got. You don't have the cloud of everything that happened to you that day, and sit and have your coffee or maybe without coffee, and just enjoy that sunrise. So yeah, I love sunrises. And that was one of the coolest things we did on our RV trip, because our RV, it's called the Lazy Days. It has a 270 degree windows in the back. And so we would wake up to these sunrises, and when you're RV, you can camp in the middle of nowhere all the time. And so we would wake up in the middle of nowhere and just look out, and there's this wonderful sunrise somewhere. So I have all these sunrise pictures from the window lying in my bed.
And then this one's a tough one because I think you've seen both, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
I like fall colors. Being from the Washington, D.C. area, we have some amazing fall scenes out here. Like Shenandoah National Park is probably like I would say the best place to see the fall anywhere in the country. And I'm sure you would argue with me. So you have to tell me your favorite place to see in the fall. But that to me is is really spectacular. So I love the fall. Yeah.
And then this last question is the most decisive one. But do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike on social media?
I tag. I mean, I want people to discover the hidden gems. Yeah, I think that they're great. I think, I don't have like 6 million followers. So, if I tag probably maybe one person, if I'm lucky, will actually take me on my advice. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think people need to see the hidden gems and not just go on the standard 5 trails. So absolutely.
And that was it for the this or that question, Sasha. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your experiences and the hidden gems that you've been able to find. If folks want to follow you on social media to learn more about some of the hidden gems that are coming up or the website, could you share those handles and the URL one more time?
Sure. So on Instagram, I am Sasha Traveler. Pretty easy, Sasha_Traveler. And then the website is www.offthebeatentravel.com. I should flag one more thing to you, Ivan, and this is probably a topic for another podcast, but my wife and I are writing a book at the moment about how to do more of this long-term travel thing. A lot of people asked us, like, how did you do it? Because we traveled, full-time for 2 years. And so we're writing a book. The going title is called Travel More, Spend Less. We're writing it right now. So it's not out yet. It'll probably be out maybe in a year or something, but just wanted to flag that. So I'll be getting a lot more into, sort of how to do that, how to, a lot of people ask about the finances, like how can you afford to do it? You can afford to do it. Our whole budget for our first year of travel was $36,000. For a family of 3, and we stuck to it. And then, how to travel with kids, full time, like how to work remotely, like all these things. So those are all going to be topics in the book.
Exciting stuff, Sasha. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your experiences. I can't wait to check out the website myself and see some of the hidden gems in and around the country that you've been able to share with us. But it's been really great chatting with you this morning.
Great. I really appreciate you taking the time early morning for you, Ivan. And if you come to the other Washington, D.C., then please let me know. I'd be happy to meet up in person. That'd be great.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. Thanks, Sasha.
All right. Take care, Ivan.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Sasha. We extend a heartfelt thanks to him for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow his and his family's upcoming adventures on Instagram @Sasha_Traveler. And don't forget to check out his new website, offthebeatentraveler.com, using the link in the episode show notes. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the fall, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram @HikesandMikes. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram @KetsaMusic. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsocks.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.